The passion runs deep here in Norman, Oklahoma, or as they say, sooner born and sooner bred, and when I die, I'll be sooner dead. Welcome to Oklahoma and the home of the Sooners. Today, we have one of those games that tests your focus. Top 25 team against an unranked opponent. Can you take care of business? As we'll see a squad from Conference USA, the Ole Miss Rebels, taking on the 5th-ranked team in the land, the Oklahoma Sooners. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Reese Davis, David Pollack, and Jesse Palmer with me. Guys, it's time to get it going. Sooners will get us started with the opening kickoff. From a couple of yards deep, he'll bring it out. Rolling the dice to bring it out of the end zone did not work out as he stopped at the 13. So the Ole Miss Rebels will be in a hole thanks to that short return. And as the game evolves into an aerial circus, sometimes you find a superstar running back like this guy.
And when you got this guy, you ride this guy. You give him the ball, you run the football, you find ways to continue to feed him because he just gets stronger and better as the game goes on.
And how about that catch and run? So dangerous, this guy. To the air, it's Ramos. Gets open down the middle. And a good job in coverage there as they stop it after just a few. This crowd trying to make life miserable for this offense. On the move. He's knocked down in the backfield. He'll lose a couple. Here comes this home crowd as the defense tries to get off the field on 3rd down. From the gun, wants to pass. Spits it out to the back. And the misconnection on 3rd down. The Rebels will line up to punt it away. First time we've seen their punt team this afternoon. Slips through the line. Coverage team able to put a stop to that return at the 42-yard line. So Oklahoma's offense will try to get something started with their first possession. And David, we'll see just how effective they can be on the ground running against a backer like this.
But they're going to do what they do, and they're going to feature their guy. He's an elite running back. You're a great linebacker. Let's see who wins this battle.
There have been entire defenses that haven't been able to slow this running back down. This linebacker, though, he's got the athleticism to do it himself.
Can't get him to the ground. And he'll find enough running room to get it just short of midfield at the 49. They'll try to bully their way for the first. They convert on 3rd down as he gets it to the 46-yard line. The Sooners headed quickly to the line. After run, now throw. Just a bit of a misfire there as they can't make the connection. Now on 2nd down. He's looking to throw. Caught in the backfield, it's Irvin. He is stopped behind the line of scrimmage. They'll lose yards on that one. On 3rd and long, he'll need to loosen up that arm. And the defense gets to the quarterback.
And that is how you silence this raucous crowd. Defensively on the road. First drive of the game, setting the tone, getting a huge sack on 3rd down.
And the Sooners send out the punt unit. He'll aim it toward the sideline to try to make it tough on the return team. Punt goes out of bounds, and a really nice job as they stick them deep in their own end. They'll mark it around the 10. Makes the catch. It's Santos. He's brought down, but there's a flag on the play. Let's see if it stands. So the decision has been made, and the coach will take the penalty. Listen to this crowd just shaking the girders of this place, trying to help their defense. That's a way to get some breathing room. He's got 5 out to the 9-yard line. And now on second down for this offense. Looking to throw. That's caught. It's Santos. That is exactly what you're looking for when you talk explosive plays. The defense finally able to make the stop. Off the play fake on first down to throw. Nice defensive play to get a hand in there and knock it away. Let's see what they've got on second down. Running back searching for a hole. Man down on the play as the officials take a break to let him be checked out. Better find the earplugs. Here comes the noise, backing this defense on third down. They'll try to move the chains on the ground. They thought they could just run it on third and short, but this defense was there to make the stop. Fourth down, and the punt team sends it the other way. Fair catch called for and made around the 20-yard line. Here come the Sooners ready to go on offense. That last drive won't go on the highlight reel after ending in a punt. They'd like to be more productive this time, David.
And I think this offense has to be a little bit more balanced. Find a little balance between the run, Jesse, and working in that pass.
And I think, too, David, it's just going to take a spark. It just takes one play to get this thing picked up and going.
Gets it out fast. And oh, he was off to the races after the catch, and they finally drag him down. The Sooners want to move quickly. And this passing game has them calling Boomer and answering Sooner again.
And they're starting to get this crowd jacked up and this crowd riled up. And listen, they love their team. And, dude, think about it.
He's got it up to 20. And they pick up a better than 30 yards on that completion before the defense brings him down. Gets it out quickly. Oh, how did he make that move? He was working his way toward that goal line. They'll stop him at the 2 after the big play up top. Movement here from the tight end. He'll keep it himself. And he sprints to the end zone. Touchdown, Sooners!
Man, you've seen the evolution of the option, and you've seen the evolution with scrambling quarterbacks that can run and be so dynamic and just so much to defend. The quarterback says, forget that. You defend everything, I'll take it myself. In for 6.
Lining up for the PAT. And the extra point makes it 7-0. A very efficient 5-play scoring drive. And finish the deal with the short touchdown run from the 2. And he'll return it and try to get behind his blockers. He was looking for some running room, but not much to be found as he stopped at the 18. The Ole Miss offense ready to go back to work. From the gun, the running back has it. They make the stop, but there is a flag on the field. We'll see what that's all about. Holding penalties, the ultimate drive killer. We'll see if it costs this offense here. Touch pass on the jet sweep. And that defense is there to guide him out of bounds after a short gain. They've got him pinned deep in their own end, and this crowd trying to help keep them there. Feeling some heat. And down he goes back at the 3.
Well, the offense got themselves into trouble. They're back in their own end. It's an obvious passing situation, so the defense is just pinning their ears back, and they're trying to get after him. They could not allow him to escape, step up, get rid of the football. They take a sack very close to the goal line.
Here comes the crowd trying to make it tough on 3rd and long. The give to the tailback. And sure, tackling there to keep him from getting to the first down marker. And the Rebels line up to punt it away. Doesn't say much for your drive when you're looking forward to the punt. and the coverage team gets to return her on the ground. So Oklahoma has it again, and here comes the offense. That last touchdown drive was surgical through the air, Jesse.
It sure was, and that's why this offense is so dangerous, David, because they can score in a hurry because of how efficient they are throwing the football.
And welcome to modern college football. That's what it is. Spread you out, find my playmakers, make quick decisions, and really put defenses in a difficult situation.
That run epitomizes a veteran, savvy senior who knows how to find space.
That's a nice run. This guy has it all, doesn't he? He has speed, he has shiftiness, and he has power. The power reminds me of an old, great Sooner running back.
Nowhere to go with the ball, and down he goes at the 39. How about that play by the strong safety? Made sure his responsibility was covered, and then just went and made a play.
Yeah. And sometimes it's freestyling, right? Sometimes coaches will get a little bit upset, but they don't get near as upset when I get the guy on the ground. They're okay with that, but I'm spinning down. I'm playing close to the line of scrimmage as a strong safety. I see the quarterback. I got to make sure if I do go to him, I better get that sucker, and I better wrap him up, and I better tackle him.
Oh, he had it, and he dropped it. Almost one of those big plays he's known for. It'll be third down. Getting some heat. Always a welcome play for the defense as they get a sack at the 47.
And when it's third and this long, a lot of times you sit back and play soft coverage. No, sir. I'm bringing the blitz. You could tell they fooled the offense. The defense gets home with the blitz, gets the big sack.
The Sooners will send out the punt unit. This will be the second time they've had to kick it away. Make sure that there's not going to be a return on this when ball's out of bounds, and I think they'll mark it right around the 25. Off the play fake on first down. On the run, still looking. And the pressure is going to get to him, and down he goes, and that's how the first quarter will end. We reached the quarter break with Oklahoma on top. We put one in the books. Let's have a look at our game summary. Now to see if these guys can get back in the game in the second quarter. The roar of the crowd trying to fuel this defense to keep them pinned in their own end. Makes his connection. They bring him down, but a solid pickup to put them in position to pick up a first down. They come to the line facing third and long from the 25. Looking to the big tight end. And it was worth the gamble, but the long pass is incomplete. The Rebels will bring the punt team onto the field. Fourth time tonight we've seen this guy come on to punt. He'll call for the fair catch here. Here comes the Oklahoma offense. Here's another opportunity, Jesse, to stretch out this lead after punting last time.
I think it goes back to your playmakers, Reese. I think it's finding the guys that have been working for you earlier on in this game and getting them the football.
Yeah, and there's obviously no need to panic. I mean, think about it. You got the lead. You got the football. You got to be smart with the football, make your plays, put a good drive together.
They line up, and it is a long way to the sticks from here. On third down, he'll try to pick it up through the air. It's incomplete, but here comes the flag, and I think it's going to be a first down.
And the defender just way too handsy on that last play. You could see all the contact as the ball was in the air. He simply can't do it, and the referee's caught it.
Wants to throw on first down. Pass on the way. It's picked off. He'll try to take it back. He's at the 20. Touchdown, Ole Miss. And this defense coming up with points of their own. What an interception return. This time it's the defense finding ways to put points on the board.
There is nothing better than being a defender. Seeing that ball in the end zone, your eyes get big as saucers. Go, jump on that puppy, secure it, get you a touchdown.
Now they'll line up for what they hope is automatic. And it's up and good. And let's check in with Kevin Connors in the studio. Kevin?
Week in and week out, guys, you never know what's going to happen in college football. Check this out. K-State has the lead right now. The Little Apple has been buzzing all week, but this game is hardly over. There is time left on that clock. They're up by 4 over NC State. We'll circle back if anything changes in this exciting college football matchup.
And how about that one? Kevin will be keeping an eye on everything going on elsewhere. Oh, it's a fumble. And the defense has got it, and they're bringing it back.
And that's a huge play by the defense. Great job and great effort getting to the ball carrier and swatting at the football, knocking it out, and then falling on it for a massive fumble recovery.
Ole Miss ready to send the offense onto the field. After a punt on their last possession, they are set up in plus territory this time.
And honestly, it wouldn't have mattered if they scored a touchdown their last possession. You've got to be able to turn the page and see this as a brand new opportunity to go get points.
Yeah, and your defense has set you up for the position to get points right away. Now, let's get this offense back rolling again, create some momentum, just get a few first downs, and I'm in scoring position.
Knocked down at the 27 after a pickup of 5. Decibels rising as the crowd gets behind this defense on third down. To the ground to try to pick up the first. They tried to go smash mouth on third and short, and it did not work against this defense. Now on fourth down, here comes the field goal team. Splits the uprights right down the middle. And with that, they've taken the lead.
Well, sudden change situation. You got to give this defense credit. Their offense just turned it over. They held tight. They didn't allow a touchdown. They forced their opponent to take a field goal. Nice job.
After putting up the field goal, they're set to kick it away. And they thought about a return, then thought better of it. They'll bring it out to the 25. Time for this Sooner offense to go back to work. On the run, it's Irvin. Couldn't fight his way out of his grasp. And the Sooners are in the hurry-up. Moving the running back, forcing the defense to adjust. Grabbed in the middle, it's McMillan. And good coverage by the defense, just a short gain. They've made third down offense a key. It'll be tested on third and long from the 28. From the gun, wants to pass. And they can't make the play on third down. The Sooners decide to punt it away. Let's see if he can help the coverage team out with this one. Kicks it high, and it's just hanging there as if it has helium in it and floating down toward the earth. First down here for the offense. They'll give it to the back. You'll take 4 yards on first down every time, 2nd and 6. Someone not clear on the snap count. It'll be a false start, and they'll move it back.
False start, offense.
The officials offer the deal, and the coach accepts it. They will take the penalty. Pulls it and fires to the left. Didn't pick up a lot there, moved it forward just a few. The D thinking bring some heat on third and long from the 44. A little screen to the running back. Didn't have much room to run and not a whole lot of help. Short gain there and still plenty of ground to cover for the first down. And the Rebels will try to pin them back with the punt. They've been busy out there to punt for the 5th time today. Not going to risk a return here. He'll make the fair catch. The offense lining up for a first down play. Give to the single back. At the 35, he's open. Up near the 40-yard line, they'll mark it at the 39 to pick up a 15.
Really nice run. This guy brings balance to this offense. It's not all high-flying aerial passing attack, too. You go back to Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, Samaje Perine. They've always had
nothing but green ahead. And he's brought down after a huge completion. That big play has them in business. 1st and 10 inside the 20. Run in the red zone. It's Irvin. And the defense stops him just short of the first down. Maybe needed a few more chain links to move the sticks. Pre-snap motion in the backfield. On 2nd down, wants to throw. Snags it. Gets it into the end zone, but there's a flag down. We'll see if this one is coming back. Amazing how many times an offensive holding penalty will stall a drive. We'll see if the offense can overcome it. The play-action fake. And here's a fumble way behind the line. Oh, look what I found. The offense keeps it.
Woo. Deep breath, right? Man, you fumble that thing, you cough it up, you're like, oh, I really appreciate you, brother. I can't tell you how much I thank you because the coaches would have been all over me, but big-time break for the offense.
They've moved it to the 25, but now facing a 3rd and long. He's looking downfield to throw. They're setting up the screen.
You got to love that. On defense, one of the most critical statistics out there is how do you play on 3rd down? How do you prevent the opponent from keeping drives alive? Right there, tackling the catch. You gave up the completion. What do? You set up 4th and long. You're going to get the ball back. Go get some water and celebrate.
All tied up and just about set to kick it away. He'll bring it out from inside his own 10. Really disciplined job by the coverage unit to get down there and make the stop at the 19. The Ole Miss offense ready to go back to work. Looks as if he's going to run it. And he'll pick up the 1st down after a tough run there. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. Coming out on 1st down with the play fake. Just couldn't find an open man. He'll get rid of it, and it'll be 2nd down. Couldn't make the connection last time. Let's see if they throw it again. Off the bootleg. Wants to throw it. Quarterback extends the play. He's going to run it. Still running at the 40. Nifty little scamper on this one. Enough for the 1st down, and he slides in safely. The clock has stopped, and we've reached the 2-minute warning before halftime. He wants to throw. And they got him for the sack. The defense coming up big there, and the sack is great, but the secondary deserves some credit, too.
No doubt. When you can cover like that in the secondary and drop back in your zone and only rush a few, and you feel comfortable getting home, and they're going to get to the quarterback, that is a great feeling, and that's fun to be a defensive coordinator calling the plays.
They've already racked up big sack numbers. It's starting to snowball, and they are ready to go again. Looking to pass. It's Ramos. Fired that thing out in a heartbeat, but it's incomplete. Here comes this home crowd as the defense tries to get off the field on 3rd down. They go to the ground. And he's not going to make it. The defense denying him the 1st down. The Rebels will punt it away on 4th down. A high kick trying to pen them deep. Fair catch called for and made. 1st down here for the offense. Wasting no time throwing on this drive. And this will be incomplete. A big hit there forces 2nd down. Couldn't make the connection last time. Let's see if they throw it again. He's looking for a man on 2nd down. And the pressure gets to him. Down goes the quarterback. Quick timeout by the defense there, trying to make sure everyone has the same call. I'm not positive, but that first down marker might be in the next county. And he's not going to get there. The defense stands tall and makes the stop. The Sooners will call on their punt team. He's getting a lot of work. Fourth time he's punted tonight. A high kick. Let's see if he can pin them back deep in their own end. Now a fair catch is called for and made just shy of midfield. Ready to fire from the pistol. They'll run the option. He'll pitch it. And I think they'll give him 2 on that one. 2nd and 8 coming up. And the Rebels in the hurry up. On 2nd down, he'll let it fly. It's caught. Hits him with a stiff arm. And the catch was one thing, and the run even better. A big pickup on that one. They'll immediately call timeout. Wants to throw on 1st down off the play fake. And the quarterback is sacked. There are penalty flags down, but this might be doubly bad for the offense. I think the penalty might be on them. They'll decline that penalty, obviously very happy with the results of the play. Back to throw, it's Ramos. Nothing to do with the football, and he just throws it away. It'll be 3rd down. I'm not positive, but that 1st down marker might be in the next county. And he's not going to get there. The defense stands tall and makes the stop. They'll send out the kicker here. He's already made 1 field goal, but this one's going to need a big leg. A 50-yard attempt coming. We played 2 quarters here. Time to go to Kevin Connors in our halftime update.
Guys, you've been calling a lively one from Norman so far. And it'd be easy to say these 2 offenses are glad we've hit halftime based on their respective performances. It would also be accurate. Turnovers and sacks have told the story so far. And you gotta believe the play calling has been the issue, right? Time to shred those game plans and just get back to basics. With that said, let's send it back to the guys at Memorial Stadium.
The Rebels will kick it off to start the 2nd half. He'll bring it back from inside his spot. Didn't find any crease in that kickoff coverage, and he'll be stopped at the 17. Now the Oklahoma offense will go back to work. First drive of the 2nd half, always fun to watch. You see what type of tweaks were made at the half, especially when you're locked up in a ball game like this one.
Yeah, and it's been a good game. I mean, it's been a little bit of back and forth and a feeling out process. And now once you get in the 2nd half, who's going to get aggressive, Palmer? Who's going to take some shots, try to make some plays, and really go for it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as play callers right now, you learn a lot about these coaching staffs with respect to who does make the best adjustments. There's a lot of coaches that believe we're just going to be who we are. We're going to keep doing what we do. We're just going to do it better. But then there are others that tweak things a little bit on offense and on defense. We're going to find out here.
Line getting set on 2nd down.
I think that time offensively, you're just trying to take what the defense is giving you, right? They're playing zone coverage. You got your big fella just working right over the ball. It's an easy pitch and catch. Just take the profit. Let's keep going.
Couldn't find his man last time, and that leaves him with a 3rd and 6. It's a draw. He's knocked down in the backfield. He'll lose a couple. And the Sooners will punt this one away. They may have to pay him overtime. He's punting for the 5th time today. He'll settle for some pretty good field position and make the fair catch at around the 35. Ole Miss ready to send the offense onto the field. To give to the big fullback. The sledding has been tough. Scores have been at a premium, Jesse, and every possession seems like it could switch the momentum of the game.
Yeah, Reese, for this offense, just feels like they just haven't been as physical. And for this offensive coordinator, David, he's having to go deep into the playbook just to try to generate a 1st down.
Well, and the good thing is there's not a ton of game pressure because the other side's not scoring either. But if you can find that one thing get that one positive play, and then maybe you get those juices going, and something can start to build.
And the Rebels will line up to punt it away. They'll look to pin him deep. Trying to play a little field position with that high punt. He'll settle for some pretty good field position and make the fair catch at around the 35. They'll try to put a drive together starting from the 36. Receiver on the move gets the touch pass. Really nice stop there from this senior leader. The Sooners come to the line in the hurry up. It'll be a draw. Shakes off the defender. And a nice run there before the defense finally makes the stop. After the last run, would you just give it to him again on third down? They'll try to pick it up on the ground. And he'll be taken down, but he does have enough for the first down. The Sooners come to the line with a fresh set of downs. They try to pop a run on the draw. Showing off the arms. And he's able to shed one tackle and gets a pretty good pickup. Got 6 on first down. Now a lot of options on 2nd and 4. They've got him looking run. Now they're going to throw it. And the defense is all over the quarterback, and down he goes. They line up with some serious work to do if they want to convert this one. On 3rd and long, try to convert through the air. Quick strike complete. And he's going to be taken down, but there's a penalty flag on the field.
Hold it. Offense.
This defense happy with how that last play turned out, so they'll decline the penalty. And the Sooners send out the punt unit. And these guys have been busy. 6th punt of the day. No return coming. He'll call for the fair catch. Offense getting set for first down. Use the play fake. Now to throw. He wants to go deep. Brings it in down the left side. Can anyone catch it? He's at the 10. Touchdown, Rebels. And that one will put him up here in the second half. Did not take long to get into the end zone. Now let's see if this gets this offense to hit overdrive.
And we may have a situation here. We might have points, and more points. You keep putting drives together like that quickly, chewing up that much yardage, defenses are going to have to get something figured out.
On to attempt the try. And the extra point is true, and they're on top by 7. And for a quick update, let's go to Kevin Connors in the studio.
2 very different emotions inside the locker rooms of these teams who did battle today. Northwestern was able to come away with the win as they have in Evanston so many times before, but not without a few bumps along the way. Man, nothing in college football is easy.
Finds a spot in the middle.
60 minutes of football and a convincing outcome, and certainly a game with implications far beyond just the standings, fellas.
And Kevin Connors keeping an eye on everything all over the country. Sounds like they had a good one there. He's brought down, but there's a flag on the field. Let's see which way that's going to go.
Hold it. Offense.
Just an obvious holding call there, and one that just kills an offense's momentum. Looking for a productive play on first down. Gives it to the back on the draw. And he is stopped immediately by the big defensive lineman. This offense has a second down play. Right back to him on the ground. Not a whole lot of progress made there on the short run. This is a 3rd and long. Looking to throw, and he needs a chunk play. Makes the grab down the left side. And the tackle is made, but not before that completion gets him 30+.
Well, how about the offense setting that play up? We've seen earlier in the game a couple shorter throws. They're just trying to suck those safeties closer to the line of scrimmage, anticipating that they would get an opportunity to take a shot. They called the perfect play at the perfect time right there.
The Sooners moving quickly to the line. From the gun, running back gets to give. He's brought down, but not before they pick up the big first down. No huddle offense to the line. Here's the handoff. And into the end zone. And he rolls into the house. Touchdown, Oklahoma!
This coaching staff was trying to identify playmakers on offense early this year. How about the start of the season this guy has had? Scored in their first game. He scored early in this one. Defenses up to this point don't have any answers for this guy.
The AT unit on the field. And they did make the extra point, and we have a tie ball game here in the third. After that latest answer tied things up, just about set to kick it away again. And no chance at a return here. They'll start this drive at their own 25. The Ole Miss offense ready to go back to work. Quarterback changing the plays at the line. A strong tackle and wrap up from the junior. Didn't find much running room on first down. 2nd and 8 from their own 27. Dropping back, it's Ramos. Little too much juice on that one from the junior. Third down conversions, always a huge stat. And they've got a 3rd and long from the 27. From the gun, wants to pass. Quarterback moving. Going to try to get it himself. Still on his feet at the 45. Picks up the first down and gets down to avoid contact. The Rebels come to the line with a new set of downs.
Man, it's so nice to have a weapon like this at quarterback. It dictates coverage. You want to play man-to-man? Everybody turns their back. Watch him pick him up, put him down, shoot up yards, getting a big play down the field.
Trying play action. Moves around to clear up the vision. Hard-hitting tackle. Better find the earplugs. Here comes the noise, backing this defense on 3rd down. From the gun, wants to pass. They're working that left side. And sure, tackling there to keep them from getting to the first down marker. And on 4th down, they'll try to salvage the drive with a field goal. This is going to have to be unleashed from 54 yards out. Between the uprights, it's good. And guys, after the field goal, now they have the lead.
How nice is it as a head coach to have a kicker like this? It makes these decisions on 4th down so much easier. Just strut him out there and let him stroke it through the uprights.
They were able to get a field goal on the board, and now they'll kick it away. And he takes this from inside the 5. Really disciplined job by the coverage unit to get down there and make the stop at the 19. The Sooner offense returns to the field. That last drive, an absolute aerial assault for the touchdown, Jesse.
But it was a nice job in play calling, too, David. Just giving the quarterback some easy looks and reads so he could go out and execute.
And he knew exactly where to go with the football. Everything looked really, really easy. He was hot. The ball was coming out of his hands. The defense better do something different.
Tackled, but he has a first down. The Sooners will hustle to the line. There's no need to panic or anything, but this would be a really opportune time to put something together and try to take control of this game.
And sometimes you just come out as the favorite, and you're a little bit flat, and you expect to win. And sometimes that leads to slow starts, but I think if they can get that passion, that adrenaline, they get a little fired up right here, I think they'll take care of business.
And they just got to make a play. They just got to get something positive to happen here, sort of wake them up, and then put another play back-to-back, and all of a sudden they get that momentum going. We know they've got the dudes. They've got the studs on both sides of the ball to win this football game. It just needs to start with one spark.
Time winding down in the quarter as they come to the line. From the gun, the running back looking for room. And as they get him to the ground, clock running, looks as if time will expire here in the third. Big catches, big plays, tons of yards through 3 quarters for these two guys. One more period to go to see who can make the winning plays and come home with the victory. They'll try to move the chains on this 3rd and long from the 50. From the gun, wants to pass. Just threw that one away to avoid disaster. And the Sooners line up to punt it away. That thing goes straight up like a rocket. Tell the blimp guys to look out. And the returner will be brought down. Looks as if we have an injury on that last play, and we'll take a break to check him out. Ole Miss ready to send the offense onto the field. Man, how comforting is it to know that even if your offense stalls out a little, Jesse, that field goal kicker can knock it in from a long way out.
Well, he's one of the best in the country, Reese, no doubt. But this offense would like him and prefer for him to kick an extra point on this drive. And to do that, David, they've got to have more rhythm on offense.
Yeah, create some more rhythm, create some more explosive plays, and maybe some more balance. And listen, it's nice to have that weapon and kick long field goals. You kick too many field goals, you don't get very many W's.
And he'll have enough for the first down at the 42. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. They'll run the option. And the runner is down, and so is a flag.
Hold it.
We'll repeat the previous down, but this time the offense has 10 more yards it has to cover. Line gets set, first down. The give to the back. That's what you expect from a senior. Don't give them any extra yards. Great tackle there. They'll line up for a second down play. Off the play fake. And this sophomore able to wreak some havoc and get the sack.
The defense has had some bad stuff happen to them today, but one bright spot for them has been the pass rush. They've shown the ability to get after the opposing quarterback.
Decibels rising as the crowd gets behind this defense on third down. Looking downfield, and he needs a bunch. Using the quick game. And he's able to bounce off one tackle for a solid pickup. And the Rebels will send out the punt unit. Great contact on that ball as it just hangs up in the sky. Really good job by the coverage team to make the stop, and that's where they'll put it in play. Man down on the play as the officials take a break to let him be checked out. The offense set for a first down play. They move the tight end all over. From the gun, the ground game. Found a little space, and he's got 4 to the 35. The Sooners want to pick up the tempo. Now the play fake. Throws for the tight end. And he intercepts it. And they'll drag him down after a good return on the interception. Looks as if we have an injury on that last play, and we'll take a break to check him out. Great spot to start this drive for the offense. Out of the gun, the running back has it. They bring him down, and he's going to lose a yard on that one. Didn't get much done on that first play of the drive. It's 2nd and 11. To the air, it's Ramos. Got his man. Really confident throw and catch there. Big pickup, and they have a first down. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. Pass rush coming after the quarterback, and they get him at the 32.
If your job is to irritate, to confuse, to hit, to make quarterbacks feel very uncomfortable, this defense is definitely doing their job. 6 sacks, that's the way to make the quarterback feel like he's having a hard day. He's had no response. This offensive line has no response, just a sack party.
Looking to pass on 2nd down. How about that sweet footwork along the sideline? It is a catch. These fans stepping up to help this defense on third down. Looking to throw, and he needs a bunch. And it's incomplete, but there's a flag in the backfield. Let's see who the call's on.
Hold it.
They'll decline the penalty here and let the result of that play stand. So here we are on fourth down, and this field goal kicker is going to face all the pressure in the world. Never a doubt. Right down the middle. We check in with Kevin Connors. What's going on, Kevin?
Dynamite matchup today, fellas. Let's show you what's going down. New Mexico is dominating this one thanks to an offense that's done whatever it's wanted since the opening kickoff. They're up by 25 over the Royals. Any big developments in this one, we've got you covered with the best studio team in the business. Gentlemen?
Thanks for the update on that one, Kevin. Let us know when it goes final. They'll kick it away after putting up a field goal on that last drive. And he passes on the touchback. Here he comes. Not nearly as much as he'd hoped when he brought it out of the end zone. He'll be stopped at the 15. They'll throw it on first down. Makes the grab over the middle. He's brought down. Solid pickup, but a little bit short of the first down. The Sooners want to crank the tempo. Quarterback, quick pass to the receiver. Nifty little dance step. He steps out of bounds, but he's got enough for a first down. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. Leaves it with the back. They bring him down, and he's going to lose a yard on that one. Lost one on that last one. It's 2nd and 11. Now they'll run the draw. And excellent vision to find running room there and make a really good pickup before the defense put a stop to it.
And David, how demoralizing does it have to be for a defense when you know they're going to run it, everyone in the stadium knows they're going to run it, and still you cannot stop it?
There's nothing more demoralizing as a defensive lineman because it ticks you off. It gets in your head. You know that guy's going to come off and smack you, and you got to do something about it. I think the defense may be time to start committing more guys to stopping that run, not worrying about the pass as much.
He's brought down, but there's a flag on the field. Let's see what the call is. They say you could call holding on every play. Well, they did on that one. Looking to throw on 2nd down. Caught over the middle. It's Arsenault. And that was some kind of collision between a couple of big bodies there, and he stopped from getting the first down. On 3rd and long, a check down would be the last resort. Finds a man on the right. They make the stop, but this passing game does some damage, and they move the sticks with the first down.
Well, look, that wasn't a touchdown, but that was a massive play for this offense. They needed some momentum. They needed to find a rhythm, and what better way than converting on 3rd down. Awesome job by the quarterback getting to his position.
He wants to throw here on 2nd down. Looking deep down the right side. And the incomplete pass taking a shot on 2nd down, and they'll be left with a 3rd down. They'll move the running back to try to force the defense to adjust. A shot toward the end zone. And it's caught! Touchdown Sooners!
Yeah, and that's simple, but it's not easy. It's a go route. Like that receiver's streaking straight down the outside of the field, and my job as a quarterback is to put that ball up in the air, keep it away from the safety. He does just that. Receiver comes down with the catch. Nice pitch, nice catch, touchdown.
Getting set for the point after. And the extra point gives him a 1-point lead here in the 4th. About to kick it away after scoring the touchdown. From inside his own 10, let's see what he gets. Really disciplined job by the coverage unit to get down there and make the stop at the 19. The Ole Miss offense ready to go back to work. Going up top on first down. They'll throw it to the back on the screen. Not able to break the big one on that screen to the running back, but he found enough and a solid pickup on first down. They'll ride the running back and leave it with him. The Rebels will move the sticks. We have reached the 2-minute warning, and time is of the essence if this offense is going to make a play. They'll pick up 4, 2nd and 6 coming. Went to the running game on first down. Now here they come again. Scanning the field, it's Ramos. He's got his man. Gets it to the 42-yard line, and that's a first down. Clock stops momentarily for the first down. They'll hurry to the line. On the option. He'll toss it. Perfectly timed on that pitch, and they pick up the first down on the play. Calling a timeout here, you have to avoid making a mistake in this situation. They'll throw it on first down. How about that play to get a hand in there and force the incompletion? Here comes the offense on second down. They'll leave it with him. And he's brought down, but a flag is also down.
Hold it, offense.
That penalty moves the ball back 10 yards. We'll replay the down. And here comes the offense on second down. Now on the option. He's brought down, but there's a flag on the field. Let's see what the call is.
Hold it, offense.
Holding penalties, the ultimate drive killer. We'll see if it costs this offense here. On the option. Nowhere to run on that one. He loses 4 on the carry. Timeout called by the offense, and now they just have 1 remaining in the half. From the shotgun, the handoff to the back. And he's not going to make it. The defense denying him the first down. Man down on the play as the officials take a break to let him be checked out. Down to possession here in the 4th, and they'll need to convert on this 4th down. Desperate to convert, and he'll throw it. He wants a big play here late. Intercepted. And they'll close in on him after a good return on the interception. Looks as if we have an injury on that last play, and we'll take a break to check him out. Defense showing plenty of pre-snap movement of their own. Running out the clock seems to be a mere formality here as they are ready to snap it in victory formation. Oh, that was a pretty rough showing there by this team. Just couldn't find a way to get things going and come up with the win.
Just got outplayed, Reese. There were moments in this game. There were plays to be had and plays to be made. At the end of the day, they just did not execute well enough in any of the 3 phases on any side of the football. So, David, moving forward, a lot to take away from this game as they try to improve.
A lot to take away and a lot to learn from. I mean, losses definitely hurt, they sting, but a lot of times most teams refocus and they get a sense of urgency now that they got a loss in that column. So watch the tape, watch what you need to improve on, and go attack it in practice.
That's going to do it for us from here. For Jesse Palmer, David Pollack, I'm Reese Davis, and this has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.
day.